And it's really easy to watch her doing that. Now we're all going to do it. Okay? So first, like hunch over really with firelight. And just look down at the floor. And notice how you start to feel down and low and uncomfortable, sad, like there's a weight pressing down. Really notice that. Good. Now go ahead and stand up. Pop up. Put your hands on your hips. Look up. Pretend you're on top of the world and you are Superman, Superwoman. See your cape flowing behind you. Really look up. A smile on your face. You've just saved the world. Notice how happy and free, powerful, strong you feel. You can breathe easier. Your body's lighter and freer. All right, when you feel better, when you feel stronger, take a deep breath and sit down and hold that in your heart. How do you feel now? Is that it? Okay. So, Scott's been talking a lot about anchoring, about anchors firing off all the time, right? Okay. It has the illusion that all anchors are out of our control, yes? Does it have the illusion that anchors are out of control? So my goal right now is to teach you how to make a good anchor for yourself. I don't doubt that there's other anchors out there, but sometimes it's really nice to have a way to take control of the situation right now. Okay? So I'm going to tell you a little story about me. It's a little bit embarrassing because I don't really usually say how I react to things, and if I get out of control, it's really uncomfortable for me. So first you have to understand that I have this crazy obsession with Bruce Willis. And I get it, he's old, and he's bald. But I fell in love with the Die Hard movies, and if there's Bruce Willis in a movie, then I gotta see it, okay? And that led to like strange obsession with action movies, right? So Sylvester Stallone, anything that there's action and somebody muscular, sexy, right? Yeah. We know what my dark desires are. Anyway, so I had a friend who knew that I liked these movies, my friend's husband, and so he thought that I liked Chuck Norris. Now, ironically, I had never seen a Chuck Norris movie. And so he's cracking all of these jokes about how Chuck Norris this, he cuts a big rock in half, or the mountain falls apart, or like something about trees going off somewhere. And I'm like, because I really want to feel competent. I really want to know that I'm understanding what he's saying. So I'm like, I get it, I just let him go on for a while, and he lets it go. Well, a few months later, we were watching the third Expendables movie. And coincidentally, I'm at their house watching this movie because they have a giant TV. And I'm like, yes, because there's all these action heroes in it. I'm super happy. Well, they're having this action scene where they're totally getting decimated. Like, they are not going to come out of this alive. And all of a sudden, Chuck Norris comes along and he takes out everybody and he saves the day. Well, I start pissing myself laughing. I mean, tears streaming down my face, and you gotta understand that that's not me. I don't lose control in front of anybody, especially not him. And I'm peeing myself laughing because all of a sudden all these jokes are going off in my head that he was telling me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's so funny. I am hysterically crying and laughing about this, okay? So what this is for me is a happy anchor, to the point where I will be really grumpy, really pissy, and if my children say to me, Chuck Norris, I have to pop out of it. I can't help it. And I don't even like Chuck Norris, but I have to laugh at it. Okay.
You gotta read them.
Okay. All right, so let me see. I don't even think I can read them. I'm going to cry. So let's see. There used to be a street named after Chuck Norris, but it was changed because nobody crosses Chuck Norris and lives. If you rate this 5 roundhouse kicks, then Chuck Norris will roundhouse kick Justin Bieber's ass. Okay. I can't read them all. Anyways, you get the point. Okay, so something random that really didn't make any sense to me now has like a huge control over my life. But the truth is we can manufacture this kind of happy anchor for ourselves. And for some, it's words, some it's colors, sometimes it's people, songs, right? So we've all went somewhere and we smelled something and we're like, oh, it takes us back to maybe our childhood and something that somebody had in grandma's house or something, right? It's a happy, warm feeling. So anybody who knows me really well knows that I have a lot of green, right? Has anybody noticed that I have a lot of green that comes to my office? What color is my phone? It's green. What color is my eyeshadow? It's green. iPad, it's green. My logo, it's green, okay? So green is a calm, happy color for me. Not like excessively happy, but it definitely is like a calming color for me. So I put it everywhere to like help anchor me to calmness. Even my screensaver is green. So just give me a second here. If I had known it was coming out right then, I would have had this queued up.
What fun would that have been?
What's that?
How would that have been fun?
Cancel. Done. That's not gonna work. Can't make a point if you don't have it anymore. Your children have accidentally deleted what you were going to show somebody. Never mind. Okay. So, I'm a phone. Green phone. So, for me, I had to also create a way to randomly interrupt my thoughts as a surprise. Like I wanted something that would instantly change my mood no matter where I was, okay? We can also do this for planning it. So if we want to change our mood right now, we can change it with a word or a thought or a feeling, or even by changing our physiology like we just did. So my other happy anchor, and this will happen when I'm driving, is that I will randomly get a happy surprise because I will see green Camaros. Now I don't know if I secretly want one, but I think that's really great in a green Camaro. And the thing is even those little green little buggy cars, you know, it's not a very fancy car. It doesn't matter, it's lime green. As soon as I see it, I told myself I have to smile. And so I actually have a picture of myself. Well, I went and hijacked somebody's car, green car, just so I could take a picture in front of it. And then I can pull it out, or remember that standing in front of that green car and feeling all sexy. Because I needed some instant ways to make myself feel happy, and I can just remember it, or I can think about it. And sometimes there's even a spot that I press on my hand to help anchor me back to a happy memory or a happy thought, okay? So do you understand that I've integrated lots of things in my life to make me feel strong, secure, and happy? Okay? And calm. Green is calm. So, can everybody close their eyes and picture something that made them jump up and down happy? So ironically, one of my happiest memories is when I went and got my green phone case. And you can even ask my husband. I was jumping up and down excited because it was the perfect color of green. So Be that little kid, and if you have to access that little kid memory where you were jumping up and down and happy and so excited, just nod your heads so I know that you guys have that idea in your head. And if nobody had reined you in and told you that you could be even like 10 times more excited, just imagine it now, really happy, jumping up and down, excited. And as soon as you do, just go ahead and press on a spot on your hand that is easy for you to grab. And if you can think of a word or something associated with this memory, go ahead and really remember it again, really remember what you saw, what you heard, what you smelt, what the feeling was in your body other than just excitement, and go ahead and think that word and remember that fully. From your head to your toes, remember how it felt. See it, feel it, hear it, smell it, taste it. Good. Now go ahead and shake your hands loose. Erase the blackboard in your mind. Keep your eyes closed. And then go ahead and just remember another time that made you really, really happy. And if you can't think of one, go ahead and imagine something that would make you really, really happy. Like winning $1 billion, or succeeding at what you wanted to do, accomplishing your goal. Really imagining it fully, see it, hear it, feel it, imagine it, in whatever way makes sense to you. Now make it 10 times more vibrant, more alive, like it's jumping off the screen at you. It's actually in you, you're doing it. And you're so excited, so happy. And then go ahead and press on that same spot on your hand and say that word in your head. Good. And shake your hands loose and erase the blackboard in your mind. And then just go ahead and pick one more time. One more time that was really exciting, really fulfilling. And that energy is just bubbling from the inside out. See it, hear it, feel it. From your head to your toe, put yourself right in that situation and make it even more alive. It's almost as if you're doing it right now. And go ahead and press on that same spot on your hand and say that word to yourself. Good. Now shake your hands loose. What you've created for yourself is a happy anchor, an easy, fast way to allow yourself to feel instantly happy. Now the beauty of this is that each time you think about it, each time you do it, each time you use your cue word, it becomes stronger and more powerful for you. Stronger and more powerful for you. So of course you want to use it often to allow yourself to easily and quickly change your mood. Now of course you can almost jump up into it each time. So when you commit to using your new tool as frequently as you can, to allow it to become stronger and more powerful for you, your eyes will open easily.
You don't have Chuck Norris, he has you.
I know. I don't even try to take that. You guys good?
Well, I don't know. Are you?
I'm good.
Okay. So, what did y'all get out of that? Stay up with.
Control our view.
Yes, you can. So,
I'm gonna have you write things on the board, or on the thing, so go ahead and get it.
Oh, no, I
Get
want
that.
to take a picture of that one.
Yeah, and, all right, so there's a couple of rules that I want you to know about this, okay? Does that make sense? There's some rules. So I want to show you an anchor really quick so you understand it for real. So here we go. Go ahead and feel all kinds of shame again. Go ahead, do it. Now you notice she's laughing her ass off every time. Exactly the same. I built an anchor, I fire it off, she goes to her sense of humor instead of the original feeling. Is that true or false? Now this is, what I did that for was to set it up for her demo. But here's the issue with anchoring. Anchoring is a real phenomenon. So draw a bell curve on top. This is extremely important for you to take seriously. Because anchoring happens to you every day, all day, and it can be negative or positive. So an anchor is formed when you go into an emotion, okay? Whatever the emotion is, and when you're at the exact peak of an emotional stimulus, extreme happiness, extreme sadness, joy, stress, whatever, right? When you're at the peak of that, when you're in the emotion and you're feeling it, and you have a stimulus, the stimulus becomes the trigger of the emotion. Okay? You following me? So if you're in the middle of feeling like crap and somebody gives you a hug is actually going to make you go into sorrow. You understand? You following me? So lots of people create crises in order to prove they're loved, because they have anchor after anchor until they believe the only way to pull people closer to them is to have a crisis. Think about that. Now, what I want you to see is it can be sight, sound, touch, taste, or smell. But there are things called competing anchors. Do you remember when we did the visual squash? We put positive anchors on one side, negative anchors on the other side. Well, what if I'm talking to somebody and I'm asking them to go into an emotion and they're shaking their head yes, but they don't actually go into the emotion? They're talking in their head, they're distracted, their underwear's in a bunch. Well, if they're not at a peak emotional experience when I do whatever the stimulus is, it's not going to set an anchor, right? That's why we ask over and over in different ways and slow down and watch. And when they really get into the emotion, we set the anchor at the peak of when they're intensely emotional. You understand? So it is not thinking about it. You have to be in that juicy emotion to set an anchor. Yes? So, the strongest ones are smells, setting smell anchors. And smell anchors can be negative or positive. You could be in the greatest emotional moment of your life, in the best romance ever, and you could smell Brussels sprouts in the other room and it could blow that moment right out. No, I'm not referring to you making Brussels sprouts all the time.
No, I stepped into dog food with $100 tennis shoes on in Guatemala and I threw them away because I knew I wouldn't be able to erase that yucky from my mind. So I had to throw the shoes away.
Doesn't matter how many times you wash them.
It
There's
doesn't
dog
matter
food
how
shoes.
clean they are.
Now, so what I'm pointing out here is VAKOG. Now, what happens is, it's not whether you can get over something or not quite a bit with emotions. Remember that away from pain emotions are stronger than positive emotions, because if we are in a threat, we need to run fast more than chasing positives. So it is normal to have away from pain emotions be more drastic, right? So give me 2 dots. So what I want you to think about is, if this is a positive emotion, and it put a 3 there, like it's a 3 of intensity of emotion, and the negative emotion is a 7. Imagine that if these anchors are fired off, this has more power than the positive one, so the positive one's going to go to here and fall to 0. The stronger emotion, the most intense emotion as anchors are fired off, is the one that's going to win in the nervous system. Are you with me? Okay. So, what if somebody has 2 things going on? They have their anchoring going on, and also the only time they feel safe is when they're a victim of circumstances and they think someone's going to kind of have to ride to their rescue. So they kind of have a martyrdom thing going on. So now we've got the anchor of being martyred and the self-pity, plus we've got the 2 or 3 emotions that are going on. So when you're setting a positive anchor, like if somebody just was in a car accident and wrecked their favorite car, and a kid was in the front seat, and the kid got scraped up, and they're standing on the side of the road, and I fire off their green car anchor, it's not going to have enough leverage to blow out the negative emotion they just went through. Does that make sense?
But it might collapse the green car anchor.
But it might kill the green car anchor. That's right. So what I want you to see is that I don't want you to misunderstand whether anchors are working or not because you just didn't understand the concept of leverage of emotions, right? So when you're setting positive anchors, it takes 5 or 6 positive anchors, and they have to be juicy and intense and emotional. Also, the weirdest place you touch yourself is going to be a more unique anchor. Okay, so your hands are good. You could also use like the back of your ear in a funny spot, or right here in your back. But the place that you touch the least is going to stay a strong anchor the longest, let's say, right? I don't know what you're thinking. All right.
Don't ask.
Yeah, I know it has. Okay. Yes?
So that's why we had to stack the positive.
So I had to stack the positive and get
Because
leverage.
they generally have less charge.
Yeah, you need to make sure that, well, that's a collapsing anchors thing. That's actually meant to blow out anchors or to integrate sides of a debate in the head. But what I want you to see is there are some anchors that are very unhealthy. Like, for instance, what if somebody didn't get you to surrender as a kid? So every time you're dealing with authority, your anchor is the state of mind of defiance. What if you are dealing with relationships and you feel so threatened and your original anchors were formed by your mom and dad not getting along? So every time in a relationship goes good or bad, you fire off the anchors of watching mom deal with dad instead of your relationship. And you don't even know what's happening.
Don't a lot of people do that anyway?
Well, yeah, but we don't want them to, do we?
No, but-
Okay. You know, Heather and I, we don't have 2 kids together. We have the kids that we raised in other situations and stuff, and she is the mom to those kids in a lot of ways. But I would point out that my dad, again, he adopted 3 kids from a previous situation, and then my sister and I were born to my mom and dad. 2 times in my life, I ended up raising other people's kids, and in very strange situations, because of the various anchors that were in my world. Now, what I want you to see is that it took, like Heather had anchors where she would feel the most love when somebody was wounded in some way or another. So the anchor that would fire off that would begin her love strategy is somebody wounded, right? I don't know if anybody else here could relate to that. So there's anchors all over the place that happen. And when we're doing a blowout of somebody's anchors, they don't know that we're blowing out an emotion that doesn't have to be there. Sometimes they think we're just arguing with them, right? So remember that there's 2 things you can do with anchoring. Blow out a negative, like get rid of a negative anchor, and or build a positive anchor. The reason it's so hard to blow out a negative anchor, even if it should blow out, is of course the nervous system thinks it won't be protected if it doesn't look for the negative problem in the future. Okay? So how many of you know that when you hear the voice of your spouse, you start to get upset? Raise your hands if this is true. This matters a lot. I want to help you with it. Okay? So you understand that you have deeper anchors to when you thought you weren't getting your way, or when there was a problem, or when they let you down, or when they hurt you in one way or another. But it could be as simple as you don't want to be told what to do. You understand? But either way, you have associated stress instead of love and joy with the voice of your spouse. Do you get that? So can you imagine that it would be good to blow that anchor out? Okay. So you want to associate positives with the voice of your spouse, don't you think? But if you go through life and you're dealing with kids and stress and money and work and garbage and the other stuff that happens in relationships that nobody wants to face, which is sometimes things happen. You can be totally in love with somebody and people can make mistakes. There could be infidelity or money stupidity or all kinds of things that happen, right? But maybe the couple actually is still in love. So do you want to walk through the rest of your life with the negative anchors to the negative stuff that happens? Or do you want to associate joy and love and compassion and excitement, right? So with what Trisha is teaching you, I want you to remember that you might want to use like a smell. Get into a great mood and use a certain kind of tea or a smell. You might want to use a sight anchor. And she used auditory and kinesthetic anchors just now, sound and touch. But remember, if you're not in the emotion juicy and feeling that emotion, the anchor won't really set very well. So notice I tested the anchor and the pattern interruption I did with her several times until it worked every time I did it. So I knew it blew out the old emotion. Regardless of what she went through, she now has the freedom to work through it without carrying it around in a bucket. So it doesn't magically make the whole world different. It magically makes all the feelings different. And different enough to move on. Does that make sense? Okay. So notice that if you're sending a positive anchor but you haven't blown out the negative anchors, sometimes it doesn't take very long for the negative ones to fire off and wreck the good one. Okay? Yes, Heather?
Don't use a smell anchor to cover bad stuff. Like, I love cinnamon, orange, and clove. That's my favorite smell in the whole world. It smells like Christmas. Except that I had 2 geriatric dogs, and I found a cinnamon scented spray that cleans up mess. So then I had that cinnamon scented spray, which I love the smell of. I bought it by the case. I associated it with cleaning up after geriatric dogs, and it ruined the smell because now I go back to wet carpet, wet dog when I smell that smell.
Yeah, that makes total sense. But I want you to see the point of this is you want to anchor solutions. You want to anchor joy. You want to anchor happiness. You want to anchor romance and love. You want to anchor all kinds of stuff. You don't want to try to fix a problem directly with an anchor. You want to set anchors that are so juicy that if you're off a bubble, you can fire them off and put you in a good space, right? But you may need a pattern interruption of the old anchor before you have a good anchor. You may need a pattern interruption of the old anchor before you get a good anchor, right? So some of you have anchors to men or anchors to women. Like in his case, he has an anchor to women that I want to beat out of him before he leaves here. Okay? Because he has an anchor that is, it's so important for him to be compassionate that when he's dealing with women, he tries to take a dive right away. He goes into a mood that's taking a dive right away. He wants to show he cares. So he's currently a lesbian in a man's body. Now, yes. Now, that joke is a joke I've told a lot. But what I'm saying is, he is absolutely, when he's in a situation with a woman or dealing with a woman, he goes immediately into the mood of compassion. That anchor fires off, and he doesn't have access to protecting himself. So he doesn't know the difference between a puppy and a shark. And he'll pet the shark just as much as he'll pet the puppy. So when he deals with women, he goes into a state of compassion or a state of vulnerability. Now, am I wrong about this?
No, not at all.
Okay. And it makes him lose his ability to protect himself in huge ways. And it makes him feel less than. And he thinks he needs women's approval to be a good person, which is a lot like letting the fox guard the hen house. A guy thinking he needs women's approval in order to be okay is a miserable son of a gun. Okay, so you know, that's a certain recipe for feeling like crap. So remember the idea when you're setting these anchors that I want, when he's dealing with women, for him to fire off the anchor that the most loving thing to do is being the rock. The most loving thing to do is being the stable tree. The most loving thing to do is not become more sensitive than them. You never read a romance novel that goes, that guy could cry his eyes out and my pants fell off. It just never happens. Okay? So I want you to recognize that sensitive men are very lonely sons of guns. Does that make sense to you?
Somewhat.
Yeah, it's 100% true, and you don't like it. So I really do want you to get that. Compassion does not make men have a good time. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. And I want you to remember that every woman talking in content will try to convince you otherwise. I want you to think that that's like they're stealing something from you. And remember this, there's not a woman in here who wants to be able to get a control of a guy in order to like him. But they're going to try their best. Okay? So now, what's the anchor to when a guy caves in and you know you have control of him? What's yours?
What's associated with
Yeah,
it?
what emotion do you go into if the guy caves and you know you have emotional leverage on him? Disappointment. Is there any girl in here that doesn't recognize that? That if you actually get control or leverage on a guy that you're married to or with, and you actually can control him completely, that it's horrifying disappointment? Because it is. The second thing that I want you to recognize is if you've never had control over your guy, and you're in defiance and angry because you think you're supposed to have more control, once you got it, you'd have been gone. The reason you're still there is you don't have it. Because female attraction is 100% based on the experience of challenge and opportunity. And if the challenge goes away, the attraction goes away. Challenge is part of attraction. So what's weird is, we men are very stupid beings. And we want your approval more than we want anything else, in a crazy way that you have no idea how bad it is. And the only way that a guy can keep a relationship and a girl happy is if he somehow chokes that back and actually stays in a strong position. It's true. And hundreds of books have been written about this. It's in plays all over the place, like Taming of the Shrew. The end of Taming of the Shrew, the only woman who's loving and connected to her husband is the one, it's Kate. It's Kate who loves her husband and is in control of her husband and happy. And he controls his situation and she respects him. But remember that all the other women at the end of Taming of the Shrew hate their husbands. They have total control of their husbands, they're manipulating their husbands, and they hate their husbands. So what's funny is that the testing of men by a girl has to happen over and over again. But remember, you're not playing to win, it's just a little test. And for guys, remember, compassion does not make you safer to be with. Being the tree makes you safer to be with. Okay, so I want you to come up here for me. Now the problem with this point that I'm making is, on the girl side, you kind of win either way. If he caves and you have control, that's a kind of a win. And if he can stand his ground and you feel safer with him, that's kind of a win. But the guy loses both ways. So, now, yeah, stand here on the trap door. Now, so Trisha, I want you to go ahead and push him toward me. Push him. Now, keep pushing him. Keep on pushing him. Okay. Now, all I want you to do, go ahead over there. Stand right here. Stand right here. Hey. Now, all I want you to do is don't let her move you. That's all. Just do not let her move you. Okay. Go ahead and push him. So just don't let her move you. Now, what I want you to notice is, do you have the ability to admit that he's very unattractive when he can be pushed over, and there's something better about it when he's standing still and unable to be pushed? Do you get it? Now, if you get it, and if you take that in completely, yes, if you get that and you take that in completely, you understand why marriage is such a complicated puzzle. Because truly, he's not supposed to cave. Do you get that? He's supposed to be able to take what you can dish out. And the weaker you think he is, weirdly, the more you kick his ass. Because you keep waiting for him to stand up. true. And the problem is, these little boys, we've all been raised in the 80s or whenever we were raised, and we were raised to be compassionate. So we were all taught to come to your side. We have generation after generation of men who are trying to please you by giving in. And they honestly don't know that it's a losing proposition. Isn't that sad? It's awful.
Good for business.
Yeah, have some compassion for the dudes though, honey. Okay? Give them a break. Okay? Because they honestly are trying to do what they think is right, and they're losing the attraction because they're caving in.
Can I ask you a question?
17.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Why is it, like with my history, I kept picking partners that were more the sharks? And I would just get, like, people were afraid of me. I was saying that to Shelley last night. On the, for 20 years, people were men and women. I put off a really, don't piss with me attitude.
okay, so go like this. Put one hand like this. Put the other hand like this. Say, woe is me.
Woe is me.
Go ahead 3 times. Woe is me. Woe is me. Right. So you're not wanting to get hurt. And one way you adapted to not get hurt was kind of,
Like, yeah.
okay. And then the next way, after that wasn't working anymore, you thought you handled something wrong, then the next thing you know, you got all vulnerable and weird. So somebody got hurt, and the next thing you know, your new adaptation was, was central. Okay, so first it was, I'm going to be, that guy. And then the next thing you know, you're, can I get you something? Okay?
Yeah, no, well, I mean, true enough, right?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you think about what makes women secure, it's you not having to cave. That does not mean being mean. It does not mean being intense. It does not mean being impatient. It just means if she's freaking out, don't cave. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take 5.
Good. You're perfect.
I have way too many questions for that one. Yeah, me too.